Party till you puke says it all, really. Saxon at that time seemed to have been concerned more with the partying and enjoying their success than working hard on the new album. There were some decent songs on there like Rock the Nations and Waiting for the Night, but the single Northern Lady, the ballad of the album, is a contender for the title of weakest Saxon single ever. If a cover song is the best song of the album, and actually the only one most people remember from this album, then your own writing wasn't the best you can do. The great video they shot for Ride Like the Wind deserves to be rewatched, but that's about it. Crusader is one of the few cover artworks by Saxon which is truly iconic. I've done a video 2 years ago talking about the oftentimes poor artworks the band has released and mentioned this as an exception. Also, the title track is one of their best, and Just Let Me Rock is a good opener for the B-side. Unfortunately, the whole rest is rather forgettable, with tracks like Rock City which sound like a lame imitation of American hard rock. If you re-listen to 24 albums preparing an album ranking like this, you're likely to discover at least one album which completely slipped out of your memory. In my case, that was Into the Labyrinth. Battalions of Steel and Live to Rock were occasionally played live, but just like Live to Rock seems like a recycled version of lyrics they've done several times before, there's nothing particularly exciting. So much for the 4 albums I don't really like, now for the good stuff, or let's say top 20. In his autobiography, Biff calls the debut a bit of a mixture, showing the different influences, and that Wheels of Steel was the first real band album. The Saxon album was still recorded in the 70s and sounds like it, hard to compare to later albums. Nevertheless, it's interesting to listen to Unplugged and Strung Up, the acoustic album recorded over 30 years later, which includes re-recordings of early stuff like Frozen Rainbow. In the 2000s, occasionally an old song would slip back into the concert set list of the band to provide a little surprise and variety. The debut album is like a puzzle piece you shouldn't miss to complete your picture of Saxon. If you are looking for a typical Saxon album of the 2000s, The Inner Sanctum is a likely candidate. It's got a few strong numbers like Let Me Feel Your Power and I've Got to Rock to Stay Alive, so nobody could say it disappoints, but it doesn't stand out from the rest of the lot either. Richard Lionheart was an English king who loved England so much he preferred living in France. Then he popped off to a crusade which failed to achieve its goal to free Jerusalem, and on his return he was thrown into a German prison. This rather disastrous career was turned into one of the most heroic quests of the Middle Ages by creative history writers, which goes to show never underestimate the power of the press. Anyhow, Saxon delivered an okay album here. Witchfinder General and the more melodic title track are my favorites. If you bother to count the BPM of each song, I wouldn't be surprised if you find Killing Ground is the slowest of all Saxon albums. There are sad and thoughtful tunes like Shadows on the Wall and the cover Code of the Crimson King, also many mid-tempo tunes. Rarely they are setting the speakers to full blast like on Dragon's Lair. I like that the album is a bit different. Unlike other albums, you don't have a feeling of you heard it all before. On the other hand, it hasn't got many songs I would list among my faves. Saxon surely promoted the Forever Free album a lot and toured twice for it. First the Bombers and Eagles tour with Motorhead, then their own headline tour. My favorite songs are the title track and the very personal song Biff wrote about his father, Iron Wheels. Yet there is no denying that we get a few weaker songs too, especially the superfluous cover Just Wanna Make Love to You. Also, the production made in Austria this time was not up to the energy and quality of more recent records. The record label had sent them to a producer who was working in pop music and had no clue what metal was about, a mistake they would not repeat. Metalhead, good album. My favorite songs are Travelers in Time, Conquistador, and the opener of the B-side, All Guns Blazing. The cover artwork is interesting, like Past Meets the Future. Subverting my expectations, the title track Metalhead is about aliens, not heavy metal fans. An album with a few surprises. Nosferatu is an interesting track with its gothic atmosphere, pretty unusual for Saxon, but why not? Also, they tried Monster Growls and Predator, courtesy of Amon Amarth's Johan Hegg. You can hear also in Sniper how Saxon are making the album a trifle more modern and aggressive, but they don't overdo it. Carpe Diem made my day because it appeared between two cover albums entitled Inspirations and More Inspirations. Compared to these boring and predictable selections of Beatles, Stones, and Who, it was a relief to get something fresh on the table. The title track is a powerful opener with an interesting lyrical subject, the Roman invasion of Britain. The Pilgrimage is the best epic since Crusader, causing goosebumps, along with a bunch of speedy numbers guaranteed to please. This album is full of mean and aggressive songs from Sacrifice to Wheels of Terror. The production, courtesy of Andy Sneap, is razor sharp and to the point. An impressive LP from beginning to end. After a couple of mediocre albums, it sounded like Saxon had rediscovered the spirit of their early days on Call to Arms and blasted it through the speakers with fresh energy. Back in '79 is the obvious nod to the past, while Hammer of the Gods or Chasing the Bullet were some of the heaviest tracks they produced in years. After the classic Saxon albums Strong Arm of the Law and Denim and Leather, Power and the Glory was definitely a step down. The title track, the speedy This Town Rocks or the epic The Eagle Has Landed, became Saxon classics, but the fifth studio album also included weaker numbers like Red Line and Nightmare. The latest album dives into history with songs like 1066, Kubla Khan and the Merchant of Venice, or Madame Guillotine. Unlike a few other bands, Saxon are not ambitious when they are choosing these subjects. They are never preachy. They know they are in the entertainment business and just put good stories to use. Okay, it was an easy guess for you that this album is one of my faves. Unleash the Beast and Terminal Velocity are two great songs to kick off this album, and it stays strong with tunes like the melodic Circle of Light and the powerful Bloodletter. Only at the end it hides two weaker moments with the ballad Absent Friends and the average rocker All Hell Breaking Loose. Sometimes I get asked why my channel is called Metal of the 90s, because the 80s were so much better for metal. But I think we had a lot of great times in the 90s as well, like Saxon putting out Unleash the Beast in 1997. Then they would come around to my hometown so we fans could go and headbang at their show. We definitely had fun. This album is altogether a bit darker than others, with songs like The Devil's Footprint, Destroyer, or the World War I epic Kingdom of the Cross, along with great powerful numbers like Eye of the Storm, Stand Your Ground, or the title track which blows you away right at the beginning like a battering ram, a flawless LP. Innocence is no excuse, the only Saxon album where the ballad became the biggest hit. Broken Heroes is something special, and the rest of the album, with a lot of catchy tunes like Back on the Streets or The Devil Rides Out, presents the more commercial side of Saxon, but in the best possible way. I caught myself whistling the melody of Rock and Roll Gypsy hours after I played the LP. Definitely my favorite album from the second half of the 80s. Solid Ball of Rock put Saxon back on track after several weaker albums. It might be the second most important album of their career after Wheels of Steel. They are focusing more on the European market now. This album is heavy and kicking with songs like Baptism of Fire or Solid Ball of Rock. Requiem, We Will Remember, was a hit indeed still remembered. This high position might surprise a few fans, but Dogs of War always was one of my personal faves. The title track is a killer when you can stand in the crowd shouting, "Dogs of War, no surrender, that's what you came for." Walking Through Tokyo is a pretty unusual track for Saxon. It creates that foreign atmosphere of Japan with a chunk of keyboards. Then there is the mystical story of the Great White Buffalo, the mid-tempo trip down Demolition Alley, or the Bon Scott-style song Big Twin Rolling. A thoroughly entertaining album with plenty of variety. To me, the most underrated LP of the band. Motorcycle Man and Machine Gun are about the heaviest stuff you could find in 1980. At the time, the new wave of British heavy metal was rising and Wheels of Steel clearly belonged to the top, even if the next Saxon albums would provide a little bit more variety. Incredibly enough, just released a few months after Wheels of Steel, Saxon presented a worthy follow-up that doesn't sound rushed at all. Heavy Metal Thunder, 20,000 Feet, or the title track are more music in the same vein, while Dallas 1 PM even manages to raise the band on the next quality level. Princess of the Night, Never Surrender, Midnight Rider, and of course Denim and Leather. It's an album full of classics, and when the band played the entire album live in 2011 for the 30th anniversary, I bet nobody wanted to hear anything else. Thanks for watching.